Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Humans and Wildlife Show. My name is Giorgia Auteri, Dr. Giorgia Auteri now. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Dr. Christian Sase. Christian, what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah, first of all, welcome everyone. This is 2023, and Georgia and I have actually not been very active, at least here, for quite some time. So before we say that, Georgia, why has that been? There's been so many things to
Oh, wow, I feel so put on the spot suddenly.
Of course.
Well, we originally we were going to take a holiday break,
Yes.
right? We're always busy during the holiday times. And then the break just kind of extended itself, I feel like. Well, I was busy doing field work. I
Yes,
think it was originally gonna be an October break,
that's
because
right.
October, as you might guess from bats, is a very busy time of the year for the bats. Halloween is in October, and that is a bat-themed holiday, at least here in the United States. And the bats are very active during that time. They're migrating, they're doing their fall mating. So, because I study bats,
Yeah,
I was really busy with my students out in the field collecting data. Oh, it's so great to see everyone here. Hi.
let's just greet Lady
Yeah.
Hawk. I'm amazed you're here. It's great. I know you're always so busy, so welcome. Kit, welcome. Mustafa, I think from Cairo, David Dunn, very nice to have you all here. Say hi to, we're really excited to have you here again. And I didn't want to put George on the spot. It's really, honestly, we were both very busy. I was doing crazy astronomy things, building day and night and so on. So we both decided to take a break, which I think is very sensible, and come up with new ideas. And that's where it brings us today with a new show.
We
And
were yeah, we were on sabbatical, we were just taking a break. But,
you
oh
know,
my god, it's so amazing. I kinda thought we would come back and nobody would be here anymore. Everyone would have forgotten about us, but it's so great to see, like, especially the people that I'm used to seeing here. So David Dunn, hello, Mustafa, Lady Hawk, Kit Harvey, Sharon Drury, Frankman, Tracy Carter, Anthony Cruz, Chris Hickman, Lori R. Wow, Carrie Miller. Yes, hi everyone. It's great to see you again.
thank you.
James Barker.
And honestly, the time, is this actually a good time for you? Because at least for North America, it seems like, wow, very late, but maybe we have.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I'm
drunk right now. Sorry, I am. I just came home early from the bar for this. So, but if this is a good time for people, I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, that's great. So if this time is better for you, just let us know in the comments whatever you think, and also some ideas you have. You're always welcome, but because the show would be nothing without you, seriously. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Hi,
let's talk.
PA Green. Yeah, it's good to see you too. Sorry. Okay, yes, let's talk. What's our
So,
subject for today?
kind of give you a little bit of background how this actually happened. It's amazing. So I was in Brazil I was with my wife in Brazil. It was amazing actually. And gosh, we had tropical rainstorms every day. And just after New Year, well, I caught a tropical virus and I was out. I went to emergency. I had to go to the emergency. And these tropical viruses can be nasty, really
Wait,
nasty.
what tropical virus is it, if you don't mind me asking your personal medical
Well, we
information?
don't know. I went to hospital, I went to emergency, and I was really almost like on the floor. I'm not exaggerating, but it's really nasty stuff, right? I just wanted to sleep and do nothing else, which is very unusual for me. Anyway, so I was sitting there in the usual emergency, which is actually very good. And they gave me all kinds of, they finally gave me some medicine, whatever that is. And then I lay in bed and I couldn't do anything really. So I said, so I started playing around and looking at all kinds of things, getting some inspiration because there was nothing else I could do. I couldn't. So and then I started with Chat GPT, which is this AI, and we'll talk about that some other time.
Okay, here's what I have to say for everyone. Christian has been off on one thing after another. He keeps texting me, let's talk about Chat GPT and how it's just AI can just write papers and essays for you now. And let's talk about our programming and let's talk. So we're full of ideas. And Christian, I guess, was having some kind of like fever dream inspiration. Wait, Christian, what kind of tropical disease did you have?
I actually don't know. I didn't have fever or anything, but it was so I couldn't eat anything. Absolutely, stomach ache like crazy, which is horrible. And like this, I don't want to make a big story of it, but when you have this type of, how should I say, like pins and needles everywhere. This thing when you read, but I had no fever. It was crazy. And after a few days, it completely disappeared, and it was
No.
like I never had. But I had such inspiration, and I saw it on the internet. Is it possible that when you have a virus like that, that you get so inspirational? And there was not one single article on really. Everybody like,
Yes, I mean, well, so it must be because I've heard it. Now we're going off onto a total topic that we're not supposed to be talking about. But like, yes, Neil Gaiman, a famous author, he's come up with, some parts. I think it was like the prelude to Sandman or the beginning of it. He had that in like a fever dream. It was the entire, like that entire graphic novel was like a fever dream. And your ideas, and also getting closer to the topic of biology, what we're supposed to be talking about today.
we will,
Um,
we will.
yeah, Wallace, like there's like Charles Darwin, but then Wallace also, came up with kind of the theory of evolution or parts of it at the similar time. Wallace came up with some of these ideas about the theory of evolution while he had a fever, a tropical fever thing happening. So
Yeah.
I
By the
don't
way,
know. Yeah,
your wife gets sick. No, it was not COVID. I mean, that's the most obvious thing. I tested myself, I don't know how many times for COVID. It was not COVID, and I never had COVID. That's the amazing thing ever, and I don't know why. Nobody else got that. Only me, and I'm hardly ever sick. But to Georgia's point, is I was in a state of delusion that was very creative, and it was wonderful because I came up with all these ideas.
this is why people do drugs. Okay, so Christian, what are we talking about today? You came up with this biologists
Yes.
say R is
Yeah,
the title.
that's very interesting because I was actually having lunch with David Hancock recently and Mike Sears, who's also been on the
David
show.
Hancock of the Hancock Wildlife Foundation. They do
Expert.
eagle rehabilitation. Yeah,
And
raptors.
they were getting so frustrated at lunch, and they said, "Oh, we've got all this eagle data, and it's so frustrating. We can't do anything with it, right?" I said, "What do you mean?" Well, you have to know R. And I said, what the hell is R? I've never heard of it. So I said, well, I'm going to take a look. And I started reading. And I thought, this is interesting. I've done some programming before, Fortran and all these things. Yeah, I could, I would call myself an intermediate coder, not brilliant, but intermediate. So I could read these things. And I thought, well, this is interesting. These biologists are really, wow, they go into incredible data mining. I got hooked on this. I thought it was interesting. And then I wrote to a text message to Georgia and said, guess what I'm learning R? And I thought, she wouldn't be interesting. She writes back to me, I'm an expert at R. And I nearly fell over. I said, well, and that brings us to today's topic. What is R? What is
Yeah.
R?
So for context, yeah, R is a programming language, a computer, a scripting language. I'm actually teaching a class this semester where part of it is there's a weekly computer lab component of the class for them to learn R each week. So Christian is like, have you heard of R? And it's like your mom, I don't know, someone's ancient mom texting you, have you heard of Google? I was like, oh yeah, I mean, yes, R is very useful. I use it a lot. So today is all about how this R computer coding language, and just like any coding language, it's really useful for being able to take a look at all of the data that you generate now in biology. So specifically, this data that we're going to talk about is generated by the GPS tracking collars, actually, that were put on eagles that were released by the Hancock Foundation, if I'm correct. So they have all this data on the eagles that they release and where their movements are, but they don't know how to look at it, right? So if I could share
Yes,
my or
whilst you do that,
show my share screen.
yeah, but you can imagine David Hancock, who is very inquisitive. So is Mike Sears, of course, Dr. Mike Sears. And they want to analyze this stuff. All this tracking of eagles across the Pacific Northwest for a long time, and goes all the way down to Missouri and to Alaska and all these areas. And they want to know, why do eagles behave like that at a certain time? And there seems to be some repetition. How does correlate with other things. And that's where the biologists, the more clever biologists like Giorgia come in and say, hey, I can look at your data. I can make sense out of this. And this is where R comes in. Okay. That's what it's about.
Yeah, and so a lot of you have just learned a little bit more than I actually knew about the data. And in Christian, if you could add my shared screen to the
I'm sorry,
file, I
what?
can't do it.
You can't. Oh,
I'm sharing my screen, but the viewers can't see it. Yeah, this is just the, so this is the website that the Hancock Wildlife Foundation, their logo is here. And so this is just about the tracking data. So this is where the data came from that we're going to be looking at in R. So you can see,
that's
maybe you
mild.
can't
By the
see.
way, that's
Yeah, basically they have these trackers attached onto the eagles. And from that, you can kind of get their movements, right?
Yes, exactly.
And, Christian I pulled this up. He told me about it just like 5 minutes before we went live. So I haven't really looked at it yet. But you can see that there's this movement data. You can see that these are like each different color corresponds to a different eagle. They have different names. I thought it was kind of funny that a lot of the eagles were named turf, which is like an insult for someone who doesn't believe in trans people's, I don't know, existence or rights, or that they're the same as, I don't know. But I'm like, oh, all these insulting eagle names here that we have.
But isn't this exciting?
But yeah, that's a little bit of background.
Data there, and yet it hasn't been looked at. I just have to quickly say this, Giorgia, and we actually flooded with data. We're flooded with so much data. If you go on the biologist websites, everybody's taking data, even in Georgia's fields in bats and whatever. But there's not enough people to actually analyze the data. That's what I'm understanding now. That's why I'm so excited about this. Right.
Yes, and this is something I try to get my students on board with too, because we are accumulating all of this data. It's becoming more and more common to deposit your data online after you've done a study so that other people have access to the data, for example, these movements. And after you finish your particular study that used this data, it could be that there's like a second study that becomes possible by considering both this data and the data from someone else's project. Maybe how does bald eagle movement compared to other birds or something. But not as many people are interested in synthesizing that data. New wildlife biologists come into the field and they want to learn about wildlife. They want to get out there and handle the eagles. But the thing is, yeah, a lot of people like collecting the data. Not as many people like actually looking at the data and analyzing it. And then even fewer people like, writing up that analysis into a scientific paper or something. So we are in a sort of, I guess, a rich age where there's tons of data available to be looked at, and hopefully a lot of opportunity for people who are interested in synthesizing it and using code to look at it.
So let me just explain. So where does it come from? Giorgia, why is it called R?
Oh, I wasn't prepared for this question. I don't know why they named it R. Do you?
I'll tell you. So this is interesting again, because that's the first question I asked myself. Where the hell? I mean, who even thinks of that? Those are two New Zealand programmers in the 90s, and they were very interested in statistics. And both their first names started with R, and I don't remember the second name. And that's where they say, let's just call it R. So that's it anyway. Okay.
That's amazing.
So that's where the funny word R comes from.
That sounds like so New Zealand-y. That I'm kind of like enamored by it. I love it.
Yes. And because it was developed in the 90s, some people say, well, why don't you use Excel or so? So here's the main thing. Excel is a wonderful, powerful tool. But what the biologists and many other data scientists use is there's so much integrated tools in R that are like 10,000 compared to maybe 100 in Excel. So you have much more power to do things. analyze data because it is so widely used and recognized, right? So,
Right.
and that's where Georgia comes.
So, I mean, yeah, and I mean, the benefit isn't just that it has broader functionality in R. That is certainly true. But another big benefit is actually that it's reproducible. So in Excel, if
That's
you delete a column, there is no record that you deleted the column, right? You can just save over the data file. In R, literally everything that you're doing, you're not manipulating the actual data, you're not altering the integrity of the source data. So we can look at the data here. This is like as if we were looking at it in Excel, and there's columns and rows of data. But we're never like changing this really.
very good.
Or if we are, there's a record of exactly what we did. And so we just kind of redo that change every time we run the code, if that makes sense.
Easily exchange the codes so that others can reproduce what we've done, right? In the repository and so on, right? That's the idea, right?
Yeah, and so like as what I was just doing is I was actually just manipulating. Christian originally sent me data for just one eagle, and then of course, right as we were about to start, almost he sent me data for all the eagles, and so I just changed the code a little bit to read in the new data frame, and hopefully it'll work. And so okay, yeah, so let's see. Like this is reading in a CSV file of data, and I asked it just now. I said, okay, take this data frame and let's make a table and see what there's land cover data in this table, like whether the eagle was in cropland or forest, and then the GPS description, that's the eagle's name. So we can look and we can see, well, there's a lot of it that there's a lot of eagles, but for this eagle, AQUH01, they need to come up with better names for these things. Let's see, like 90 readings, it was in needle-leaf deciduous forest. And 256 recordings, it was in shrub. So that's all.
Oops, is Georgia gone? I think she may have a bit of problems with her computer. Let's hope she's going to come back. Okay. Can you still hear me, everyone? I think maybe only we lost Georgia for a moment, which is of course a pity, but I know she was, she's been working very hard at getting the data together. So I'm just going to check if you can still at least hear me at the moment. I'm not sure. Yes, okay. But anyway, we'll just hopefully Georgia can get back. Yeah, Georgia's frozen. Yes, David. David Dunn. So she did frozen in time. Okay, so you can still hear me. So I'm sorry. This was really in good intention.
Fine and good. Okay.
She's back. Georgia, we lost you for about 2 minutes. Sorry.
Am I back now?
Yes, you're back. Sorry, go on.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that I'm entirely back yet, but I was just reflecting on that. You kind of sent this data, but I didn't have a great idea of what specific questions you were interested in, or what specific
That's okay.
questions the Hancock is interested in. Yeah, so but just based on knowing that, these are the types of questions that wildlife biologists might be interested in, I started playing around with it. And I don't know.
Your picture's still frozen,
Okay.
but I think it's okay. Anyway.
That's a shame because I'm trying to show you the plots. Okay.
You're back. You're moving again. That's good. I thought you went to hibernation, so I wasn't quite sure, but you didn't, so it's okay.
I think here is what's happening is that my computer is so old. I'm still so poor from being a student that I have this like 7-year-old laptop that's computing and live streaming at the same time, and it can't handle it. So sorry about that. I don't know if Christian has like a a like coffee page or something that you can buy me a coffee page, contribute to that, and maybe
We're going to
he'll
put up
start
a
me.
GoFundMe for Georgia so she can get a new computer. How's that? She needs one. I think so. I'll help
Yeah.
you with that for sure because we need you.
Okay, so really quickly, okay, this is much more interesting than a table, right? Of just the numbers. This is the same information, but now all these different types of land cover are displayed. Each column is a different eagle that was tracked. And then the kind of the size is like how many occurrences, how many recordings of the GPS tracker it was in a different type of habitat. So we can see that like some eagles have a lot more data than others. Maybe like the tracker was on like this eagle for a longer time. And some habitat types are used a lot, whereas other ones are just like narrow little lines. They're not used very much. So one way to make this a little bit clearer is, let's say, okay, let's say we're just interested in the most common types of land cover. So how many, Christian, let's pick like the 5 most common or the 4 most common types of land cover to look at. People in the audience, I guess, how many different?
That's it. Oh, James Bourne's also back. That's good.
Hi, James Bourne, that's good. Yeah, how many types of land cover do you think we should look at? What, like 5, 7?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, that's fine. By the way,
I want
David was asking, Georgia, do you have a PayPal account and so on?
wow, people are
They take
people
it
are
seriously. Come on, they like you.
yeah, I mean, I do have PayPal. I don't know how to find it at all or how to
She's
convey the information. I guess there's like an email associated with it, right? Okay, so I decided I'm just gonna pick the top 5 land covers. So I put 1 to 5 here, and now it's gonna remake the plot with just those 5 land covers, and I might go out again. Okay, so
is a good idea. You know what? I'll help set one up for the humans and wildlife. So that we could do that. That's a better way than PayPal. So it's a good idea. Thank you very much. I think Patreon is a great idea. So yes,
yeah, I'm surprised you don't have a Patreon.
I
Okay.
but anyway, um, well, let's discuss that another time.
Yeah, totally fine. I mean, so here's just like the 5 most common land cover types, right? And we can see like how much each eagle is using them. I don't know, kind of cool. So mostly these eagles that are released from the David Hancock's Wildlife Foundation, they're mostly in mixed forest, in needle leaf evergreen forest, in tree open, which I have no idea what that means. Maybe just kind of like open suburbia type places, I wonder. Urban areas, surprisingly, and water bodies, which isn't surprising. Eagles like to hunt for food over water. Um, I don't know. Thoughts, Christian?
Yes, yeah. Look. I don't have much thoughts on there. What we basically found is that, well, at least in the Pacific Northwest, they're pretty similar to wherever the migration pattern of eagles, at least in the vicinity, goes like that. Is when there's salmon around, they'll go for salmon and so on. When there's nothing, they go straight to the dump. Okay, that's a
Yeah,
scavenger. So,
that's
so
interesting. So,
it
so
is.
Christian, onto your like you alluded to it earlier. You were like, what types of you said something about what types of habitat they use during different types of year, so or different times of year. So this is a different plot now. So this plot is showing all the data for just one individual for raptor turf 3, and each column is a month now. So this is January, February, March, April. So you can kind of see like for this individual, the types of habitat it was hanging out in changed throughout the time of year, right?
Great. Yes.
Maybe you can't see that. I don't know.
Well, it's a bit busy, probably, a bit difficult, but don't worry about that. I think what
Oh
Georgia
yeah.
Georgia's really nicely demonstrating here is how easy it is with just a few lines of code to get the graphs out in whatever you wish, right? And
Right. Yeah, and so like this is just the same thing again, but with just our top 5 habitat types again. So for turf 3, raptor turf 3, what habitat was it using by different times of month? And granted, yeah, this isn't a statistical analysis or something. There's literally like almost, infinity ways that you could plot this data, infinity, like a lot of different statistical tests you could do. That's why coming up with the question is really important, right? I always say science isn't about coming up with answers. It's about coming up with the right questions.
Absolutely. But you only ask the questions if you understand how to code properly, then you can start playing around, right? And we're going to get to that. In fact, I think what Georgia and I need to do is I'll get a bit more better at art too, because I need to, and I'm very interested. And then, we'll work out some ideas, and we'll come up with a follow-up and a proper analysis. And we might get David Hancock or Mike Sear onto that then too, and really give a more in-depth analysis. What I think is great, really, and I applaud Georgia for doing this, is when I said, I'd like some help in learning R, she just said, you know what, let's go and give a live stream. I was completely taken aback because that's amazing. She sat down and wrote all these things in a very short time. So that's really where we are.
Yeah, and also good night, Lady R. I see some people like going to bed and stuff. I know it's late here, or late for many of you. It's late for me. Yeah, it's good to see everyone again, I have to say.
It is.
And there's a question, there's a question from Janie Barker. Is the prey caught food ate tracked?
Is the prey caught? No, wait a minute. What?
I don't think that that they have data on what they're eating. I think that it's literally the GPS collar is literally just like it's attached to the eagle, and it communicates with satellite with like the GPS about where the eagle is, and then that location information can be matched with like satellite imagery or other types of land cover data. I also saw that in this data set, they do have information about temperature and speed. So I think that whatever the GPS tracker has like temperature and stuff on there too. But I don't think they know anything about, they don't have an easy way to measure what the eagle is eating. Yeah.
No, you see, the main problem is really technical that we have. I mean, getting a tracker that's small enough onto an eagle without, of course, inhibiting it from its flight and movement is already a challenge. They become smaller. Now, the problem you have, the smaller you make it, the faster the battery will drain, and especially when they come to winter or to cloud areas, you don't have much sun, so it can be that for quite some time you don't get any signal transmission at all. There seem to be different modes of operation, though, that even if it's not transmitting signal, as long as it has enough power left in the package, it can still record it. And once it gets more sunshine and so on, where it needs more power to transmit that, it will go in a transmission. It may transmit for many days. That's where the technology is at the moment. Right?
Christian, okay, I'm getting an error in the code right now because the updated data that you sent me has a typo in the longitude is longitude. Okay, I'm just saying, this is why you don't do things in Excel. You do it in R, and you have a consistency. And yeah, so I'm going to change, because then I have to change the code, right, to tell it that our longitude is in the longitude column.
I know, say header is false. Then you just answer me.
Well, no, because we still need to tell it what column it's in. But I'm just saying, every time you want the data to always be in the same format. Yes. You want to be able to run the same code and have it.
I'll get it to you from MoveBank. MoveBank is like the repository or the data bank for everything of birds that move worldwide. It's amazing. So I'll get it to you from that format, and that's what everybody gets. Okay.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we learn. Right? We all learn.
Yeah, we learn. Well, these are just like the same lessons I kind of try to teach. Cannot change working directory. This is very annoying.
Nature Scooper. Nature Scooper. I saw. Oh, wait a minute. I saw two eagles in the. in a cut cornfield next to my house last week. I'm not sure if they were caught, but definitely got something. Well, and David Dunn says, I really wondered what happened to the show. I'm glad you're here. That's very kind of you, David. Well, we'll do our best to keep going. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, to the one point that was just made, it's a very important point. You are someone asked the question, I don't remember who it was, but someone asked the question, is the food tracked? Now here's the answer. If you correlate salmon runs, herring runs, whatever, with that, then you will almost certainly know what they ate. And this is where these data banks become so precious, right? What about other birds? There may be golden eagle that go, that fly a certain way. There may be certain migration patterns of other birds that also influences eagles, and so on and so on and so on. And there's so much data that can be correlated that hasn't really been studied. It's just, and that's what excites me so much about this. Okay, so what are you plotting now?
So this is finally getting at the movement data, right? And this is just kind of getting back to the, oh my God, my computer, the plot that we saw on the website, right? The type of mapping we can do there. So I had to, because the updated data with all of the individuals in it was formatted weirdly, there's some problem reading it in. So I just went back to the original data you sent me that just has one individual.
Yes.
And so this is just literally, the movement of that individual. There's latitude on the y-axis, longitude on the x-axis. So
Right.
you could literally take this, you could grab this plot and you grab this plot and plop it on a map and it would look like that. So you can just imagine, a background of the landscape behind it.
Well, it's still
When
amazing.
you
It's great.
Yeah, well, when you originally sent me this data, I tried to make it, because I knew we would want to be plotting different eagles. I kind of tried to fake a second eagle data on a second individual. So I just randomly deleted chunks of data from, I copied this individual and then I randomly deleted chunks of data. And so you can see that this fake eagle, fake '08, has these big jumps in movement sometimes, right? So that's in the future, that's probably like a good indicator that there's a problem in the data or something, or a gap in the GPS tracking if you see these like red lines that are streaking.
That's a great question, actually. I have for you there. So it's normal that because there's so much data there, that there will be gaps or just errors in for whatever reason, technical reasons, in data. Is there a way actually in R to look for these, or do you just have to really go column by column yourself?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think there's a way to look for it. I
Mhm.
don't know enough about how this data is supposed to look to check though. So like, but for example, this GPS data, I mean, it looks like from this blue individual that there aren't actually a lot of gaps, right? At least not compared to the one where I just deleted huge chunks. It looks pretty continuous. But like, if you look at the raw data here, um, if it'll pull up, you can see that there's all kinds of information. So it has time, it records the battery level. So like
Exactly.
you could decide on what kind of error checking things you want to do, right? So you could look at the time. This is SMS time and GPS time. I don't know exactly what those mean, but you could look for gaps in time, to see if there's like where it stopped recording. You could correspond. Oh yeah, here now it's coming up. So there's literally like the day and time for each of these data points. You could look at the battery voltage and see like when the battery voltage is lower, do we see bigger jumps in movement? Those would be, a couple places I'd start just from what I can tell by looking at this data quickly.
That's good. You can see lots of questions coming up here. You can see what the interest actually is in eagles whilst you're talking about correlations. If there's anything between males and females that hatched and so on, that from Marie, I just highlighted that. I'm curious if any studies have been done to determine the number of females versus male eagles hatched, and what type of contributing factors may apply to determine which genders. Well, that's a great question. Maybe we can answer that one day, Mary.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think this data, I don't know, do they put uh these trackers on? I guess they get a lot of juvenile eagles in and then
correct,
release them. Yeah.
correct.
So there are a lot of studies on like dispersal in birds and other animals, and there is often male biased dispersal. So, a juvenile male is more likely to have like a big dispersal jump event where he kind of moves and establishes a habitat for himself somewhere far away. Females are usually across species are more likely to sort of stay in the same area. Um,
So Scooper has just dedicated $5 towards um, Georgia's computer. Here we go. Thank you so much.
Thank
Really,
you so much. I really appreciate it. Um,
thank you. It's
yeah.
great. And just very quickly to Gentleman Ghost, it's so nice to have you back. Also, everybody, by the way, is fantastic. Yeah, why it's called R, I did explain that. That comes from the two programmers in the 90s from New Zealand. Their first name started with R, and so they just decided to call it R. So that's where the name came from.
It's yeah. I mean, it's lucky for R that it became so popular. Otherwise, it would be very hard to Google, like search like help and stuff like that on it because it's just one letter, but it's widely enough known that it works well. Well, I guess so our kind of follow-ups, I think, for the data are to start are haha, to start putting the data from different individuals together, add a map to the back, um, and also exploring some of these different parameters. So for example, you can also, I mentioned that these GPS recorders are also recording things like speed. Here's just like a histogram of all the speed recordings for this one individual. You can see that most of the recordings, it's going pretty slowly, but sometimes there's some occasions where the eagle is going really fast, but the eagle spends most of its time going pretty slow. So yeah, I think we'll probably do a follow-up on getting at some of these more interesting questions about movement. What are the actual differences in between individuals and how they move, how fast they move, what kinds of areas habitat they spend time in. And yeah, honestly, any other questions that people can think of that we can ask with this data. It's easy to ask the question if the data that we have is capable of doing it. It's easy to write a line of code or something that looks
Thanks
at it.
to David Dunn too, and thanks to Sharon for shouting them out both. They have so you got another $5 for you, Georgia.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you so much. That is just wonderful. Yeah. I really appreciate it. This computer really is
It's something,
uh
to be honest. Come on.
it's old, it's tired. I do have like a desktop computer at work now in the office, which is nice. But yeah, here at home I just have a sad laptop. So
It's great. It's good.
yeah. Well, if you have any other questions, we see a lot of are eagles always testing their limits, beating their best speeds? I think they probably don't care about the speed. I think, yeah, they're just trying to go. They're more interested in the wherever it is they're trying to get to. I guess their ability to migrate or get to where the salmon are, or whatever.
You know, it's good you asked that because I was having this discussion with David Hancock, actually, the eagle biologist, recently when we were at lunch, and he after all these decades with his knowledge, he is so interested in these data, and that's why he is absolutely delighted that Georgia jumped in and just started jump starting this whole process. And I think it's going to help everyone, including me, to also help more, so that we can analyze the data and understand. Because David, after all these decades, has asked fundamental questions that nobody can answer, right? what drives a juvenile to fly to a certain weight? Is it instinct or is it something else, or are they following? They don't know the answer to very fundamental questions, right? And that's why these data analyses are so interesting.
Yeah, they really are, which I think it's pretty cool. And I mean, especially if he has more data associated with these individuals than is present here. Like in this data, for example, we don't, I don't know if Eagle Turf 8 is a male or a female, how old it was when it was released. But David Hancock, I'm assuming, has that kind of information that we can put in with this. Yeah.
Yes, and just Jamie, very quickly to your question. I don't know the answer to that. I will find out. Okay, I don't know what the latest is there. Okay, but it's going to be another cycle this year, so I will try and find out some more, and then it's worth a show, and I might even do a live show from there. So thank you for the inspiration. And the answer to this for Carrie is: are you going to? Are you too? I don't know if Georgia has the time, but I will spend. I'm definitely going to spend time in the evenings when I get more into this coding. I will definitely help them, um, analyze all this data so that they can make sense out of it. They're the experts. It's David and Mike and others, right? So the answer is yes. Definitely, otherwise we wouldn't be showing this.
Yeah, definitely we'll do more stuff with the data. I'm happy to keep helping. Although Christian has a lot of programming experience, and so it's
Lots.
easy for him to translate that to R. But yeah, someone asked something about time series analysis, which is just like, analyzing the data in the context of, this is happening sequentially in time. Definitely, yes, lots of that stuff is
But
addressable.
so what kind of questions could you ask from statistics? Maybe we'll just go into, and you can correct me if you think I'm talking garbage. Just correct me now, Georgia. That's fine. So if you let's say you take an average, right? That's the most common question that you take. Well, where are they? Or where are they on the average? And let's say, well, they're on the average. We find them on Boundary Bay, right? That doesn't really answer very much. So what biologists would look for is not the average, but they look for the median then. The median tells them a bit about the deviation, and then you have the skewness and many other factors that when you look at the statistics, you get these, you get variations and so on, and you start understanding, their habits much more because, as you know, the behaviors are really complex. So you look at all these different statistical things other than average to understand the behavior, really.
Yeah, definitely. Averages, you can compare averages. They could only tell you so much. You can, compare, for example, degrees of variation, how much variability is there, and or even things, like, how much overlap, like, do they tend to spend, are these eagles sort of overwintering in the same area, but then spreading out in the summer into different habitats, migrating to different habitats, questions like that. I mean, a good question is, what questions does David Hancock have or start to arise when he starts to like look at these, the kind of data and the way that you can look at them and stuff.
Exactly. So yeah. So we have more or less here in the beginning, but give us a couple of weeks, and we'll do a follow-up show. That's going to be, I think, quite interesting. At least I'm looking forward to it. I find this exciting. So
Definitely. All right.
all right. I think Georgia's getting tired.
I'm tired.
Oh,
I am getting tired.
You're 2 hours away, and thanks anyway for doing this and offering this. I really think it's very brave that you just jump in and do this. Really great. So thanks.
Yay. Well, I'm really glad that we came back after all these months and everyone was just like right here.
Yes.
Like we never left. Or I mean, not like we never left, but it was good to see everyone again. Good that I haven't been forgotten about.
Yeah. And we will be back very soon.
David Dennis calling me out. It's only 9:37 p.m. there. Okay, yes, only 9:30.
Well,
I'm
David,
sleepy.
November, that means it's early in the morning. That's what he's trying to tell you, you know?
Oh my God. Your astronomers are ganging up on me.
I said, what do you
Yeah, I always think I picked the wrong animal to study because I do like to go to bed early, and the bats are up late though.
of all things that you would choose bats, I can't believe this, you know. I mean, why would you do this?
I just thought they were cool.
Yeah, they are. You know,
Yeah.
by the way, GPT wrote a very nice, you write a very nice about Georgia and the bats, a poem, please. So it did. I sent it to her, but anyway. So
Oh yeah, the poem. Should I read it
yes,
on
read
my
it.
phone? Let me go get my phone.
It's just funny to stop like this, right? I mean, this is what everybody talks about now, the new AI stuff. So I spent quite a lot of time, and it also kills me, I think. But I thought, let's write Georgia a poem. I asked her to write a poem about
Yeah,
her.
this is the Chat GPT. Did you tell them?
Oh, Frankman has 4:40 a.m. Look at that.
I know, Frank, everyone's shaming me for wanting to go to bed at 9:30. Okay, I've had enough. I get it. Everyone else is older and stays up longer. Good for you. That's all I have to say.
Okay,
Okay.
read the poem.
This is our good night bedtime
Yes.
poem.
Okay.
That Christian asked Chat GPT to write. Here's an example. He asked Chat GPT to write a poem. Oops.
Yeah, it's okay.
Write a poem about Georgia and her love for bats. Here it is, your bedtime story, everyone. Georgia loved the bats that flew at night, their leathery wings, a graceful sight. She'd watch them soar and dive and play, a secret love she held each day. She loved their mystery and their grace, the way they moved without a trace. She loved their gentle echolocation, their silent flight, their unique sensation. She loved the way they lived their lives, with freedom and without disguise. She loved the way they faced the night, with courage, strength, and pure delight. Georgia knew that she and bats were not so different, in fact. For
Yeah,
like the bats, she too would fly, with wild abandon in the sky. So let her watch the bats take flight, with joy and wonder shining bright. For in the wings she sees her own, and knows she'll always love the bats that roam.
I think it's great. Come on, it's spot on.
It's pretty amazing and a little, I mean, it's a little concerning to me. I mean, I'm no like poet. I'm no great like connoisseur of poetry, but it's quite amazing, and some of it is really quite beautiful.
It
And
is.
I'm like, yeah, I don't know, because they're hard to detect. You know, they're quiet. They're hard to see at night. I don't know that my love for them is secret, but that's probably the only part that I don't relate to. Yeah, I thought it was quite nice.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll come up with new surprises this year. Lots of surprises for you. We'll kind of think of lots of things. And anyway, I hope you all enjoyed it. Let's get Georgia to bed now because it's really time for her. We can see she's getting very sleepy.
I just read myself a night-night poem.
Great.
All right, good night, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and
Thank
it
you
was just
so
so great to hear from you all again. I wish that I had time to talk with you all. I wish we could invite everyone and just turn on their webcam and get to talk with them. It would be so
We
nice.
can probably do this one day. Georgia, are you serious? I can organize this with Zoom. Actually, we can do such a thing. We can, and we will. I think it's a great idea. We will.
Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Good night, everyone. See you next week, probably.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.